I still remember the exact moment the door creaked open. I froze. Time didn't slow down, it stopped completely. Her face was wide-eyed, confused, then slowly crumbling into disbelief, was something I'll never forget. She had walked in at the worst possible moment. The one moment I swore would never happen again. But there I was, with my boss, in a situation that had already gone too far. And now, everything I had carefully hidden came crashing down around me. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Not at all. I had spent years building my life with Hannah. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but through it all, she believed in me, even when I didn't deserve it. I met my boss, Julia, 2 years ago when I got promoted. She was smart, powerful, confident, the kind of person who walks into a room and everyone notices. I admired her drive, her energy, maybe too much. At first, it was just long work hours, innocent dinners after late meetings, inside jokes no one else at the office understood. But it didn't stay innocent for long. I tried to convince myself that it was harmless, that I had it all under control. I thought I was balancing both worlds, my marriage at home and this strange connection with Julia at work. But when you start keeping secrets, they pile up fast. One missed call turns into 5. One white lie becomes a habit. I was so sure I could juggle it all without anyone getting hurt. I was wrong. That day started like any other. Hannah was supposed to be out of town visiting her sister, and I had taken the day off to rest. Julia came over to discuss something related to a project we were finishing, at least that's what we told ourselves. But it wasn't about work anymore. Somewhere along the line, the lines had blurred, and now I couldn't tell where business ended and something much messier began. We were sitting on the couch, too close, too familiar. That's when it happened. The front door opened, keys jingled, and in walked the last person I expected to see. She stood there for a moment, like her brain couldn't process what her eyes were seeing. I could feel Julia stiffen next to me, her hand slowly pulling away from mine. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would give out. Hannah's voice was quiet when she finally spoke, but it cut deeper than any scream could have. "So this is what you've been doing?" And that was it. No shouting. No tears. Just a single sentence that shattered everything. What happened next changed all 3 of our lives forever. Hannah didn't wait for an explanation. She turned around and walked out before I could even stand up. The door slammed behind her like a final judgment, and in that instant, the silence in the room was louder than anything I'd ever heard. Julia looked at me, her face pale, lips parted like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. I couldn't speak either. My throat was tight, my chest heavy. I didn't even know who to chase after, or if I even should. That single moment had cracked open everything I thought I had control over. And it all started months before, when the lines between work and personal life slowly began to blur. Julia wasn't someone who asked for much, but she had a presence that made you want to give more than you planned to. I started taking more calls outside work hours. We met more often, for longer periods. I justified it all in my head. It's just work. It's just coffee. It's just dinner. But deep down, I knew what was happening. The truth was, I was drawn to her, drawn to something I didn't want to admit I was missing in my own life. Hannah had always been supportive. She helped me through job changes, long nights, and times I barely recognized myself. But I took that for granted. I started hiding things. Not just the obvious things, but the little ones too, my frustrations, my guilt, even my growing confusion. I kept telling myself I could fix it later. That I could come back to being the husband she deserved. But later never came. And now, it might be too late. That day, when Julia showed up at my house, I had no idea Hannah's trip had been cut short. A cancelled train, a change in plans, just enough to put her back at the front door 2 hours earlier than expected. That tiny twist of fate destroyed everything I had tried so hard to control. What hurts the most is knowing she saw the truth with her own eyes. Not rumors. Not suspicions. But reality. Right in front of her. I tried calling her. Once. Twice. A dozen times. No answer. Julia eventually left without saying much. She knew, just like I did, that something had changed. Something we couldn't undo. And now, all I'm left with is silence. Silence from Hannah. Silence from myself. And a house that suddenly feels way too quiet. The next few days felt like I was moving through fog. I went to work, showed up to meetings, answered emails, but I wasn't really there. My thoughts kept circling back to that one moment, that one look on Hannah's face that I couldn't erase. I still hadn't heard from her. No calls. No texts. She had completely disappeared from my life, and I didn't blame her. The guilt was constant, like a weight I carried on my chest. I kept telling myself I'd explain everything if she just gave me a chance, but what could I really say? That I never meant for this to happen? That it was a mistake? Those words felt empty now. At work, things weren't any better. Julia avoided me. She kept things strictly professional, no extra conversation, no side glances. It was like the closeness we once had vanished overnight. And honestly, part of me was relieved. The other part wasn't sure what it wanted. That was the worst part of it all, realizing I didn't even know myself anymore. I had hurt the one person who loved me unconditionally, and for what? A connection I didn't fully understand with a woman who now looked at me like I was a stranger. I started thinking about the past year. All the nights I came home late. The times Hannah asked if something was wrong and I brushed it off. The little signs she must have seen but never said out loud. Maybe deep down she already knew. Maybe she was waiting for me to tell the truth before she had to see it with her own eyes. Then, one night, I got a message from her sister. Just a few words, she's staying with me. She needs space. That was it. No hint of what she was feeling. No sign of what came next. I wanted to call, to show up, to explain, but I knew she wasn't ready to hear anything from me. The silence was its own kind of punishment. Meanwhile, whispers had started around the office. People noticed the sudden distance between me and Julia. A few coworkers looked at me differently now. It was subtle, but I felt it. Like everyone could sense that something had happened, even if they didn't know the details. And as all of this kept building, so did the fear that maybe I hadn't just ruined my relationship, I had wrecked everything. Everything I worked for, everything I believed I was protecting, maybe it was all already gone. A week later, I finally saw Hannah again, but not the way I had imagined. It wasn't some quiet conversation or a chance to explain. It was at a friend's dinner party, one we had both been invited to months ago when everything was normal. I had almost forgotten about it, but apparently, she hadn't. Or maybe she showed up on purpose. Maybe she wanted me to see what it felt like to be the one left speechless. She walked in wearing that calm expression she always used when she was hurt but trying not to show it. Her eyes didn't look for me. She smiled politely, chatted with people, and acted like I didn't exist. That hurt more than any fight ever could. I kept watching her from across the room, waiting for just one moment where she might glance in my direction. But she never did. And then Julia showed up. I hadn't expected her to come either, but seeing both of them in the same room, my wife and my boss, two lives I had worked so hard to keep separate, was like watching a slow car crash I couldn't stop. Julia saw Hannah first. Her face tightened for just a second before she composed herself and made her way to the other side of the room, keeping distance between us. Smart move. But it didn't matter. The energy in the room shifted. I could feel the stares, even if no one said a word. The people closest to me knew something was off, and the ones who didn't, well, they were starting to figure it out. At one point, I caught Hannah alone on the patio. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could talk to her. Apologize. Explain. Anything. My heart was pounding as I stepped outside. The cool night air hit my face, but I barely noticed. She heard my footsteps and turned, but her expression didn't change. No surprise. No emotion. Just quiet disappointment. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice steady. "Not cold. Just tired." I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could speak, another voice came from behind me. "Maybe he's here for both of us." It was Julia. That moment, standing between them, exposed, raw, cornered, was the moment I knew everything was about to fall apart. And the worst part? I didn't know who I was more afraid of losing. I turned around slowly, not because I didn't know who it was, but because I didn't want it to be real. Julia stood just a few feet behind me, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Her voice had been calm, maybe even casual, but there was something underneath it. Something sharp. Hannah didn't even flinch. She just looked at her, then back at me, like she was waiting to see what I'd do. I stood frozen, stuck between two women who now knew everything, and both pretending to feel nothing. "Don't worry," Julia said, stepping closer, "I won't stay long. I just came to clear the air." "Now's not the time," I said under my breath, trying to stop whatever was about to happen. But it was too late. Hannah's voice cut through the air. "Let her speak. I'd love to hear what she has to say." It felt like the ground under me shifted. I had walked outside hoping for a private moment, a chance to fix something, anything. But now, it was turning into a showdown. And I didn't even know what Julia was planning to say. Part of me feared she'd throw me under the bus. Another part feared she wouldn't. Julia looked directly at Hannah. "I didn't start this." "He did. But I didn't stop it either. I knew he was married. I told myself it wasn't serious. That he'd never leave you. But I was wrong. About a lot of things." Hannah just nodded, like she expected that answer. But then she said something that took both of us off guard. "I already knew," she said quietly. "Months ago. I found messages. I saw the change in him. The lies. The late nights. I just didn't want to believe it. I was hoping he'd end it on his own." That hit me like a slap. All this time I thought I'd been hiding it so well. The guilt, the tension, the secrecy, it was never hidden. She had seen it all. And she had been silently waiting, hoping I'd choose her without being forced to. Julia didn't say anything after that. She just nodded slightly and walked away, leaving us alone again. But the silence between me and Hannah now felt heavier than ever. Then, just when I thought the worst of it was over, Hannah reached into her purse and handed me a folded envelope. "You'll want to read this when you're alone." I didn't open it. Not right away. I just stared at her, trying to read her face. But she didn't give anything away. She turned and walked back into the house, leaving me outside with a letter I wasn't ready to open. Later that night, when I finally had the courage to read it, I realized this wasn't just about an affair. There was something else, something I never saw coming. And what was written inside changed everything. Again. I sat alone in my car for almost an hour before I finally opened the envelope. My hands were shaking, my thoughts racing through every possibility. A goodbye letter? Divorce papers? A final message just to end it all? But what I read wasn't what I expected at all. Inside was a handwritten note, in Hannah's familiar, steady script. It started simple. She wrote that she still loved me. That no matter how much I had broken her trust, it didn't erase the years we spent building our life together. But then her words took a sharp turn. She revealed something I hadn't seen coming. She had been seeing someone else, too. Not out of revenge. Not even recently. She had met him before things between Julia and I even began. A colleague. Someone she had never crossed a line with, until she started feeling like a stranger in her own home. She wrote, "While you were drifting away, I was slowly disappearing too. I didn't cheat first. But I was the first to emotionally check out. And I let it happen. I didn't fight hard enough to stop us from falling apart." I sat there stunned. The pain of betrayal twisted into something even heavier, realization. This wasn't just about what I did. It was about both of us failing in different ways. We had been breaking long before either of us admitted it. We both just found comfort elsewhere instead of turning toward each other. But the twist didn't stop there. At the bottom of the letter, she had written, "I'm not leaving yet. But I need you to be honest, with me, and with yourself. If there's still anything left worth saving, don't say it. Show it. I'll be staying at my sister's one more week. After that, I'll know." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. It was a final chance. One I didn't think I deserved, but one I had never expected to get. Just as I was folding the letter back up, my phone buzzed. A message from Julia. "We need to talk. It's serious." I hesitated before opening it. Her next message came seconds later, "I'm pregnant." I froze. My stomach dropped, and I felt the air get knocked out of me. Just when I thought I understood the damage I'd caused, a whole new layer of reality hit me like a wave. Everything that had just shifted between Hannah and me, everything she was maybe willing to fight for, was now hanging in a new kind of balance. Because now I had to ask myself the hardest question of all. Which life was I about to destroy next? I sat there in silence, staring at the screen, trying to make sense of Julia's message. Pregnant. One word that carried the weight of everything I had been running from. I thought the worst had already happened, but this changed everything. I knew I couldn't ignore it, couldn't pretend it would go away. There were no easy decisions now. Someone's future, maybe more than one, was tied to what I would do next. I called Julia. We spoke quietly, seriously, and for the first time without any illusions. She wasn't asking for anything, not a relationship, not support yet. She just wanted me to know. To hear it from her, not through someone else or months later when it was too late to do the right thing. She said she would figure things out on her own if she had to. But I could hear it in her voice, she didn't want to. Not completely. That night, I didn't sleep. I thought about everything, my wife, my boss, this child, the lies, and the silence. But more than anything, I thought about who I had become. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being honest. I started living two lives, making small choices that grew into disasters. And now, I had to face all of it, head on. The next morning, I went to Hannah's sister's place. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just showed up with the letter she had written me in one hand and a printed copy of Julia's message in the other. I laid it all out. The truth. No more hiding. No more excuses. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She listened. And when I was done, she asked just one thing, "Are you ready to become someone new?" I didn't answer right away. But I knew what she meant. Not just for her, not just for the baby, but for myself. Because rebuilding anything, trust, love, character, starts from the inside. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Slowly. I stepped back from my job. Julia and I set boundaries, focusing on the child, not the past. And Hannah, she didn't take me back right away. But she didn't walk away either. We started therapy. We started talking again, not as husband and wife, but as two people trying to remember why they chose each other in the first place. This story wasn't about infidelity alone. It was about loss, truth, and what happens when silence speaks louder than honesty. Sometimes, we break things beyond repair. But sometimes, we get one more chance to do better. And this time, I'm not wasting it. 14.